players. You've said in the past that you don't think they should be able to play in the Ryder Cup. Do you still feel that way?
I certainly think Brooks deserves to be on the United States team. I don't know if there's anyone else on the LIV roster that would make the team on merit and how they're playing, but I have different feelings about the European team and the other side and sort of how that has all transpired. And yeah, I don't think any of those guys should be a part of the European team.
Folks, this is Rush Hour Golf Podcast, episode 9. We've got a special emergency edition. We all know that Rory said he wasn't going to talk about the whole LIV thing anymore. And a few weeks later, can't keep his mouth shut, says that he thinks that Brooks should be allowed to play in the Ryder Cup, whereas the European Tour players shouldn't be able to play on the European Tour side. Golf Lover UK, I know you've defended Rory in the past with quotes like, "I actually like Rory," but here we are now.
It's a terrible British accent. Look, I don't understand what he's doing. I think we've had 4, this is the 5th iteration of I don't like the LIV guys.
If I've said this once, I've said it 100 times. I don't think any of those guys should be on the Ryder Cup team.
Hey, let's all get on. LIV are terrible. Let's all be friends. This is really bad. Let's come together. And now I'm not going to speak about LIV guys anymore. We're just going to play golf. And now he's doing it again. So I'm just going to address Rory as a player. Not address him. He obviously doesn't listen to people. Why on earth is he getting involved again? It's easy for people to say he was asked a question. That's easy to say. But he didn't have to answer it. And he has said, what was it? You remember that? What did he say? He said, I won't be taking questions on this anymore.
And he literally did something like, close your mouth, turn the key, throw it away. Can't talk anymore.
Rory, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the first LIV golf tournament. If you could look into your crystal ball, maybe say 3 years from now, where do you think the professional game will be?
I don't have a crystal ball.
Don't want to speculate?
No.
There are very few people who I actually think make more fun, engaging, insightful content. Like some of the stuff he's done with Barstool Sports, when he's teaching the boys how to drive further, got them in slightly different positions, changed their tee height, all that sort of stuff. Rory is, without doubt, one of the greatest additions to our game. He is also now turned into the biggest moaning whinger ever. And I think what's happened is he's gone from being one of the greatest additions to our game to this moaning whinger. And now, having played fairly poorly as of late, okay, backdoored a top 10 in a major, but he's Rory effing McIlroy. Him getting a top 10 in a major shouldn't be a surprise. He's Rory McIlroy. But this whole whinging persona and this smarmy look, he does that smarmy smile as if he's holier than everybody else. And I don't get it. He's gone from being likable, lovable, and adored by millions of people to becoming just this whining pissant that keeps... And I say that wanting it to stop. I want it to stop because I want the Rory back that we all know and love. And I just want that to change. And the respect I have for his game, his ability to talk about the game, and he's got such reverence for the game that isn't put on. He does. When Jack Nicklaus gave him that trophy about 3 or 4 years ago and surprised him with it, you could see how much reverence and respect and care he has for Jack and for the game and all of the stuff that goes with it. So I'm just amazed by how a man who did that, throw away the key, having that been his 4th time of saying, let's all get on, let's not have anything, yet again, 2 weeks later, we're back here. And he's having to pass comment.
And the comment is very odd because, again, he's all right with Brooks Koepka, who obviously is earning his way onto the U.S. Ryder Cup team, being in the Ryder Cup. But he has issue with the European players on the LIV Golf Tour, trying to play on the Ryder Cup team for the European team. And especially, you've got to think John Rahm has gone to bat for Sergio Garcia, the number one leading point winner of all time.
Yeah, and let's not. I don't want this to be a personal attack on Rory because, as I say, I think he does so much for the game, and like there's certain people you just see when they're with people. He's vivacious, he's gregarious, and people seem to really like him. But the comment. So first, I comment. Why is he commenting? The comment is ridiculous. So I want to just take in isolation John Rahm's comment, which is. Let's make it like who's the best players. Ignore politics. If they deserve to be in the team because they're good enough, put them in the team. But Rory, so that's the obvious answer. Because if you respect the heritage of the Ryder Cup, if you respect the heritage of that Ryder Cup, you respect the fact that the Ryder Cup has been USA versus Europe. I know before anyone writes in the comments, which inevitably there'll be some moron that feels the need to, don't you know how the teams are picked? Yeah, of course I know the teams are picked. My name's Golf Lover UK. I love golf. Of course I know how the teams are picked. Of course I know the ownership stakes, the European side of the Ryder Cup. I'm not dumb. But that doesn't change the fact that the concept of this event has been the best players from Europe, the best players from the USA. It hasn't been the best players, well, but we don't like where they've gone to play somewhere else. Because as you and I have discussed many times, Faldo, loads of other players have played on the PGA Tour. They've all played over the different places. They've all played different tours. And for me, it's really simple. I do not understand why he has this, what appears to be, big boy, hatred of people who've gone to. We know he didn't get on with Sergio. That's been documented. But Thomas Pieters in the top 8 or 10 European players, without a doubt. So he's saying no Thomas Pieters, no Sergio, who probably isn't on current form in the top 12 players on paper, but the best team on paper doesn't win the Ryder Cup. Without being to annoy American listeners, we've hosed the American team way more times than they've hosed us in the last 25 years, and every American team on paper is being better.
Here's a quick question for you, because as you pointed out, Rory seems to hate all the European Tour players who've played on LIV or are playing on LIV. But now that brings into question Adrian Otegui and Pablo Larrazabal, both Spanish men, both doing a bang-up job on the DP World Tour. They're likely going to get onto the European Ryder Cup team. What does he think about those guys? Because they both have played on the LIV Golf Tour. I know John Huggin, this past September, wrote an article about Pablo Larrazabal playing on the LIV Golf Tour and then struggling on the DP World Tour. That's not true, because if you look at, I did some quick glancing over of the OWGR. Pablo Larrazabal, now ranked, I believe, 53rd in the world, played in 13 DP World Tour events after John Huggin from Golf Digest wrote that article, and he's won 2 of his last 3 events on the DP World Tour. So now you've got guys who you could arguably say Adrian Otegui and Pablo Larrazabal played on LIV, somehow got inspired, and now are playing great golf on the DP World Tour. What do you think Rory says to those guys?
What's Rory going to say? I don't think Rory knows what he's going to say. I think there's something more sinister actually about what Rory's trying to do. Rory, I believe and feel, is trying to prevent others going to LIV.
And so I agree with you there, and that was the John Huggin article.
I don't
Same thing.
Yeah, so I'll tell you again, Larrazabal. I think that they will play on the tour, Rory on the Ryder Cup. If they get on, Rory will get on with them at the Ryder Cup. He needs to, because he's really not pulled his weight performance-wise at the Ryder Cup. Like, you could argue he's talent on paper versus points scored. Rory might be one of the worst performers for quite a while. Again, I'm not going to blame him, because he has the weight of Europe put on his shoulder, that they expect him to go in and win every match. And Christ, that's hard. And again, things aren't always easy. But I think that Rory has been given the nudge again by the Ponte Vedra Massive. and they've said to him, do us a favour, go out there and say this, because everything is now so incestuous to what's going on with TGL that that's obviously Rory and Tiger's Golf League, that it feels that the Back Scratchers Club is in full force. Hey, Rory, we've got this. We're helping you with this. We're paying for this. We're developing this for you. Do us a favour. Go and say you don't want any. Go and say you don't want any players at all from Europe to be in the European Cup team, from LIV to be in the European Ryder Cup team. It feels that that's very much what's being said. Why has he said that comment about Brooks? Well, it's already been made really public because Brooks said it at, I believe it was the Masters, that he played 9 holes of golf with Rory and Rory had no problem with him being on LIV. So he's obviously not going to call out Brooks because they're friends. They obviously are friends, so he's not going to call them out. He's not going to call out DJ because, again, they're friends. But he hates Sergio, so Sergio's a whipping boy. He hates Sergio. He knows that Stenson's not good enough to make the team. He knows that Lee's not good enough to make the team at the moment based on current form. He knows that the minute probably Pulse isn't playing well enough to make the team. I think they're still fantastic players. So it's just an easy thing. And if you watch that video and you don't go, Rory's talking to Victor Hovland and 1 or 2 other European players saying, I don't want any LIV players on the team, and think it's anything else than him trying to convince people not to go to LIV, you're crazy. That's the only reason he's doing it. But go back to my earlier comment, you told us you weren't going to say anything else, and yet again, here you are chatting.
Pro Golf Critic, you've joined the chat, presumably to defend Rory. I know that Golf Lover UK used to be just like you, and I did my British accent of, I still like Rory. Rory's fantastic, but he's changed his tune now. How about you, Pro Golf Critic? What do you think about Rory with this latest flippity-flop flip?
It's actually really funny that I'm being Rory's defender now because I've had this reputation for the past almost full year about kind of hating on Rory. But I want to make it clear, I've always been a Rory fan. I've been following his career, the last 12, 13, 14 years. I like watching him play golf. I don't necessarily like hearing him talk in his press conferences, but I don't think any of this is not necessarily a flip-flop. He's obviously flip-flopped a lot in the past, but
very specifically, Rory is saying that he's okay with Brooks playing on the US Ryder Cup team, but he's not cool with the European Tour players who are playing on LIV, or the DP World players, former DP World Tour players on LIV playing on the European Ryder Cup team. Very specific question. How do you justify that stance?
Well, I think that obviously Rory is mostly talking about Sergio, because Sergio is basically the only one that could potentially be picked. He's someone that John Rahm has advocated for.
And Thomas Peters.
Yeah, Thomas Peters is a little bit lower down the pecking order. I could see if Thomas Peters was playing well in majors, but he's not necessarily high on the list. But
one more quick question then to interject here. You're setting a precedent moving forward. How do you then say, yes, the U.S. Ryder Cup team, I'm cool with them picking Brooks or whoever in the future, but I'm not cool.
No, it's stupid.
So that's the very specific. There we go. So I'm trying to get very specific here. How do you defend? Yes, the U.S. team can take American players who are playing on LIV, but the European team should not take, European players.
No, I can't defend it at all. This is part of the reason why I feel like the Ryder Cup is gonna totally I think this particular Ryder Cup is gonna be a complete blowout for the U.S. team. I think that it's gonna basically, go back to, it's reverting to what it was prior to, continental Europe being added to the Ryder Cup. I think it's gonna be totally one-sided. I think it's gonna completely lose its luster over the next few iterations. I don't necessarily see these things changing, and I feel like the European side specifically has removed an entire generation of these great Ryder Cup stalwarts like Sergio,
Captains.
like Lee Westwood.
We are missing out. We are missing out on Westwood, Stenson, Sergio being
Poulter.
Pulse being captains. It is a travesty.
It really is. It's terrible.
The arrogance. Well, we know DP World Tour told what to do by Keith the Puppet Pelly. He gets told to do what Jay Monahan, his hands so far up his backside. He talks when he moves his hands. I've had enough of that. That's just ridiculous. And
there needs to be a totally different independent body running the Ryder
But it
Cup.
can't be because the ownership. We know it can't be because of the ownership of the European Ryder Cup team.
Did we learn nothing from this past President's Cup where the teams were very mismatched due to banning of LIV players?
Yes.
Mismatched?
Well,
it was an absolute joke. You had Louis Oosthuizen was in some of the form of his life, just sat twiddling his thumbs. Like, all right, yeah.
Cam Smith wasn't there. Leishman wasn't there. Like, I mean, again, I think that this is the establishment totally, shooting themselves in the foot once again. Like, you've got this great event like the Ryder Cup. You're going to lose all continuity the next few iterations with an entire generation of
But they're doing
players
it to stop people going. They don't care. They don't care about continuity. They don't care about. Sorry, I'm cutting across you. I'm in a right effing piss about this. They don't give an F about the Ryder Cup. They don't care about fans as long as they think this will stop people going to LIV. And Jay Monahan and Keith Pelly, you're clueless. They're still going.
Pro Golf Critic, we're still waiting for you to defend Rory's stance here.
Look, Rory McIlroy has a lot of personal vendettas with some of the guys that have went over to LIV that he still hasn't reconciled. The whole Brooks thing, like I totally know what's going on there. Those two they live very, very close to each other. They belong to the same club down there. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on with their conversations, which is part of the reason why those two have been on the same page. They've been playing practice rounds together for the Masters. Rory literally blocked Sergio apparently from his phone. Like, and I don't think that he's talked to Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter, Stenson, any of those guys over the last X amount of months.
Yeah,
so
it's because he's just like Brandel. Like, blocks a differing opinion. It's just pathetic. If you want to be the leader of Europe and you want to be the right person, you be uniting people, not dividing it.
It's been clear to me over the past year he's been a puppet. Like, he has been doing the bidding of other people, which I think legitimately he has stopped ever since he, did his press conference a couple weeks ago at the PGA Championship.
Pro Golf Critic, to immediately refute your point, the point of this episode is that he's speaking again. He just spoke out again, even though he said he wasn't going to speak. So you're Rory McIlroy with the facts here, because the whole point of this is what just came out of him saying that Brooks should be on the American team. But
yeah,
so he just broke what you said he wasn't going to do anymore.
No, I think he said he wasn't going to talk specifically about LIV. He didn't necessarily say that he's talking about the Ryder Cup
in relation to LIV players.
In that particular context.
In relation to LIV players.
LIV players are being he's still seen as like one of the leaders of the Ryder Cup team. So he does have to address that. I don't think that he's addressing LIV specifically as an entity. It's just in relation to this event that he's going to have to talk about for the next few months.
He could simply say,
"No, but it's
I'm not going to talk about
That's the thing. Like well, he said he wasn't going to talk about LIV. He didn't say that he wasn't going to talk about these guys specifically for the Ryder Cup. So, I do think that he has like this personal vendetta against all those guys that went over there, which is like I get having personal vendettas. Like, it's not necessarily something that I want. It's not something that I think is good for anybody. I do think that if Rory was a true leader, he would basically take the same exact stance John Rahm had, and even take it a little bit further.
I'm going to put this out there. Rory is such a non-leader. He can't even lead his own body. That's why he relies on this Whoop wearable technology to tell him his body's at 22%. Now, I'm going to tell you, golf lover UK, I've turned you off of Rory, and I'm turning you off for Andrew Huberman because I'm doing the sleep cocktail research. It's all related because, again, Rory wears the Whoop wearable technology thing that is sponsored with or has some dealings with the PGA Tour, and Dr. Andrew Huberman is the advisor to that. Everything comes full circle. Pro Golf Critic, are you still on Team Rory? Because I know Golf Lover UK, he's not on it anymore.
Look, I didn't say that I was on Team Rory. Rory still has.
Rory seems to get a little bit hurt and upset, and rather than deal with it or talk it through or be a man about it, he makes snidey little comments and blocks people. That snidey little F you, Phil. Like, Rory is, what is he, 5'7", 5'8"? I don't know what he is, but like, yeah, he acts quite, for a professional sportsman who's one of the most well-known people in the world, who's got money beyond riches, he can be really quite petty. And like the F you, Phil comment was ridiculous. What he should be saying is, thank you, Phil. Nothing is more powerful than walking up to someone and going, look, mate, I didn't handle that great. I'm sorry. Shaking their hand and saying, can we let this go? He should have walked up to Phil Mickelson on camera at the Masters and gone, Phil, this has gone too far. I'm sorry, buddy. And shook his hand.
Folks, this is all something for you to consider at home. You can see how broken up and shook up Golf Lover UK is. Whereas Pro Golf Critic, he still has that ember of hope burning inside of him. What say you at home? Get in the comments section and have a wonderful day.